The world tilted when Marcus saw Javier's name flash on his phone, a ghost from a life he'd buried 3 years ago. He stood frozen in his cramped Oakland apartment, the buzz of the city outside drowned out by the thud of his own heartbeat. Why now? He thought, fingers trembling as he swiped to answer. Marcus, I need you. Javier's voice crackled through, urgent, laced with that familiar warmth that once felt like home. One last time, please. Marcus Tate, 28, a freelance graphic designer with a sharp wit and a guarded heart, hadn't spoken to Javier Morales in years. Not since the day Javier, a 30-year-old rising film director, walked away from their staged relationship, a 3-year performance that had blurred every line between truth and fiction. Back then, Javier had been a struggling artist, desperate to break into Hollywood's elite circles. Being openly gay in an industry still shadowed by prejudice wasn't enough. He needed a picture-perfect partner to sell the image of stability and charm. Marcus, broke and chasing his own dreams, had agreed to play the part for a cut of Javier's first big paycheck. It was supposed to be simple. Fake dates, staged kisses, red carpet smiles. But somewhere in those 3 years, between late-night talks and stolen glances, Marcus fell hard. Now, Javier's voice pulled him back to that whirlwind. It's the premiere of Echoes of Us, Javier said. The film we built together. I need you there, Marcus. One last time as us. The hesitation in his voice stung, like Javier knew the weight of what he was asking. Marcus gripped the phone tighter, his mind racing. Echoes of Us was Javier's passion project, a queer love story that had consumed them both during those years. Marcus had been more than a fake boyfriend. He'd poured his heart into the film's visuals, sketching storyboards in their tiny shared apartment, staying up until dawn debating character arcs. The memory of those nights, of Javier's laughter and the way his eyes softened when he thought no one was watching, hit Marcus like a tidal wave. Why me? Marcus asked, voice low. You've got a new life now. New people. Javier's silence stretched too long. Because it has to be you, he finally said. No one else knows what we went through. Marcus wanted to say no. He wanted to slam the door on the past, on the ache that still lingered. But something in Javier's voice, desperation, maybe regret, made him pause. One night, Marcus said. That's it. San Francisco buzzed with anticipation as Marcus stepped into the chaos of the premiere. The theater, a grand Art Deco relic in the Mission District, glowed under strings of lights. Paparazzi swarmed, their cameras flashing like vultures circling. Marcus adjusted his tailored blazer, feeling out of place among the glittering crowd. He wasn't the broke kid playing a role anymore. He'd built a name for himself, small but steady, in the design world. Yet here he was, slipping back into a script he'd sworn to forget. Javier waited by the entrance, his presence magnetic. At 30, he'd grown into his confidence, his broad shoulders filling out a sharp navy suit. His dark eyes locked onto Marcus, and for a moment, the crowd faded. You came, Javier said, his smile soft but guarded. Didn't have a choice? Marcus shot back, half teasing, half bitter. He let Javier take his arm, their old routine snapping into place like muscle memory. The cameras loved them, 2 men, 1 black, 1 Latino, the perfect image of modern love. But Marcus felt the weight of every fake smile, every staged touch. Inside, the theater hummed with industry types, producers, actors, critics. Javier leaned close, his breath warm against Marcus's ear. They're watching us, he murmured. Just like old times. Marcus's chest tightened. Old times meant late nights in Javier's cramped studio, sketching while Javier paced, ranting about his vision. Old times meant pretending to be in love until Marcus wasn't sure what was real anymore. He nodded, playing along, but his mind screamed. This isn't a game anymore. The film began, and Marcus sank into his seat, Javier beside him. Echoes of Us was raw, beautiful. A story of two men fighting for love against a world that didn't understand. Every frame felt like a piece of their history. Marcus's art, Javier's heart, woven together on screen. The audience gasped and wept, but Marcus couldn't breathe. He saw himself in the characters, in their longing, their pain. He stole a glance at Javier, whose eyes were fixed on the screen, glistening. When the credits rolled, the room erupted in applause. Javier stood, pulling Marcus up with him, their hands clasped for the cameras. "You okay?" Javier whispered, his grip tightening. Marcus forced a smile. "Just playing my part." But as they stepped into the after-party, surrounded by champagne flutes and fake laughs, Marcus felt the cracks in his resolve. Javier's hand lingered on his back, too familiar, too real. A producer approached, clapping Javier on the shoulder. "You two are the heart of this film," she said. "The chemistry, it's electric." Marcus's stomach twisted. Chemistry. The word haunted him. 3 years of pretending, and he'd never known if Javier felt it too. He excused himself, slipping onto a balcony overlooking the city. The cool night air steadied him, but his heart raced when Javier followed. "You didn't have to come out here," Marcus said, staring at the skyline. "I wanted to," Javier replied, stepping closer. "Marcus, don't." Marcus cut him off. "Don't say something you'll regret." Javier's jaw tightened, his eyes searching Marcus's face. "You think I regret this? Us? There was no us," Marcus snapped, his voice breaking. "It was a deal. A job." Javier flinched, but he didn't back down. "Was it?" he asked, voice soft. "All of it." Marcus couldn't answer. The truth was too heavy, too raw. 3 years ago, he'd walked away because he couldn't keep pretending, not when he loved Javier for real. And now, standing here, he felt the same pull, the same ache. The party's noise faded as Javier stepped closer, his hand brushing Marcus's. "One last kiss," Javier whispered. "For the cameras." Marcus's heart stopped. He knew the script. He knew how to play the part. But as Javier leaned in, the world slowed, and Marcus wondered if this time, the kiss would be real. The kiss lingered, Javier's lips warm and deliberate against Marcus's. A moment stretched taut between performance and truth. Marcus pulled back, his breath uneven, the city lights blurring behind Javier's silhouette. He wanted to believe it meant something, but the cameras flashing from the ballroom reminded him. This was still a stage. "Enough," Marcus muttered, stepping away. His voice was sharp, but his hands shook. "I'm done playing your prop." Javier's face fell, his eyes wide with something Marcus couldn't name. Guilt, maybe, or longing. "Marcus, wait." But Marcus was already moving, weaving through the after-party's crowd, their chatter a dull roar in his ears. He needed air, space, anything to quiet the storm in his chest. He found a quiet corner near the bar, where the bartender, a wiry woman with a buzz cut, slid him a whiskey without a word. Marcus downed it, the burn grounding him. 3 years ago, he'd been 25, scraping by in a city that chewed up dreamers like him. Javier, 2 years older and just as broke, had pitched the fake boyfriend deal over cheap coffee in a Mission District diner. "It's just business," Javier had said, his smile disarming. "We play the part, charm the suits, get the funding. You'll get a cut, enough to start your design career." Marcus had agreed, thinking it'd be easy money. He hadn't counted on falling in love. Now, at 28, Marcus had built something real, a small design studio, clients who valued his work. But Javier's call had dragged him back to that vulnerable kid who'd believed in promises. He stared at the empty glass, replaying the kiss. Felt different, less like a performance, more like a confession. But Javier was a director, a master at crafting illusions. Marcus couldn't trust it. "You look like you're carrying the world," a voice said. Marcus turned to see Lena, a 32-year-old screenwriter with sharp eyes and a blunt demeanor, leaning against the bar. She'd been part of Echoes of Us, a friend who'd seen the cracks in their fake relationship back then. "Just carrying the past," Marcus said, forcing a smile. Lena raised an eyebrow. "Javier's got you back in his orbit, huh? Be careful. He's good at pulling people in." Marcus nodded, her words sinking in. Lena had warned him years ago, when he'd started to blur the lines between their act and reality. She'd seen the way Marcus looked at Javier, the way his sketches for the film carried more heart than a paycheck could explain. "He's not the villain," Lena said now softer. "But he's not honest with himself either." Before Marcus could respond, Javier appeared, his presence cutting through the crowd. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice low but urgent. Lena gave Marcus a look, "Your call," and slipped away. Marcus sighed, setting down his glass. "Fine. Talk." Javier led him to a quieter hallway, the party's noise muffled behind velvet curtains. "I didn't mean to drag you into this," Javier said, running a hand through his hair. "But tonight it's not just about the film. It's about us." "There's no us," Marcus said, echoing his earlier words, though they felt hollow now. "You made that clear when you left." Javier's eyes darkened. "I didn't leave because I wanted to. I left because I had to." Marcus scoffed. "For what? Your big break? You got it. You're the golden boy now." "It wasn't about that," Javier said, stepping closer. "I was scared, Marcus. Scared of how real it felt. Scared I'd ruin you if I stayed." The words hit like a punch. Marcus wanted to laugh them off, to call them another script. But Javier's voice trembled, raw in a way Marcus hadn't heard before. "You don't get to rewrite history," Marcus said, his voice low. "You walked away. I was the one picking up the pieces." Javier's jaw clenched, but he didn't look away. "I know I hurt you, and I'm sorry. But tonight, when I kissed you, that wasn't for the cameras." Marcus's heart stuttered. He wanted to believe it, wanted to lean into the warmth of Javier's words, but doubt gnawed at him. "Why now?" he asked. "Why after 3 years?" Javier hesitated, then reached into his pocket, pulling out a folded piece of paper. He handed it to Marcus, who unfolded it to find one of his old sketches. A scene from Echoes of Us, 2 men standing under a cherry tree, their hands intertwined. Marcus had drawn it late one night, half asleep, his heart spilling onto the page. "I kept it," Javier said. "All this time. That's why I called you. I couldn't do this without you." Marcus stared at the sketch, his throat tight. The lines were messy, imperfect, but they held a truth he'd tried to bury. He looked up at Javier, whose eyes were pleading, vulnerable in a way that felt dangerously real. "I don't know if I can trust you," Marcus admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Then let me prove it," Javier said. "Not tonight, not for the cameras. Just let me try." Marcus didn't answer. He couldn't. The weight of 3 years, of love, betrayal, and longing, pressed down on him. He folded the sketch and slipped it into his pocket, his fingers brushing against the paper like it was a lifeline. "Tomorrow," Marcus said finally. "We'll talk tomorrow." Javier nodded, relief flickering across his face. But as Marcus walked away, the sketch burning a hole in his pocket, he wondered if he was stepping back into a role or into something real. The next morning, Marcus woke to the soft hum of Oakland's streets, the memory of Javier's words clinging to him like fog. He sat on the edge of his bed, the sketch from last night spread out on his lap. Every line he'd drawn years ago felt like a confession he hadn't meant to make. He traced the cherry tree, the two figures, and wondered if he'd been drawing his own heart without realizing it. His phone buzzed, a text from Javier. "Meet me at Dolores Park. Noon. Just us." Marcus stared at the message, his thumb hovering over the reply button. He could ignore it, let the past stay buried. But the ache in his chest, the pull of unfinished business, wouldn't let him. By noon, Dolores Park was alive with families, joggers, and couples sprawled on blankets. Marcus spotted Javier near the hill's crest, sitting under a palm tree, his casual jeans and t-shirt a stark contrast to last night's polished director. At 30, Javier carried a quiet intensity. His broad shoulders relaxed but his eyes searching as Marcus approached. "You came," Javier said, standing, his voice softer than Marcus expected. "Don't make it a thing," Marcus replied, shoving his hands in his pockets. "I'm here to talk, not to star in your sequel." Javier's laugh was low, almost sad. "Fair enough." He gestured to the grass, and they sat, the city sprawling below them. For a moment, they were just two guys in a park, not a director and his ex-fake boyfriend. "I meant what I said last night," Javier started, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "About being scared. When we were together, fake or not, it was the most real thing I'd ever felt. But I was a mess back then. I thought if I let myself love you for real, I'd screw it up." Marcus's chest tightened. "So you screwed it up by leaving instead?" Javier winced. "Yeah, I thought I was protecting you. Hollywood was eating me alive. Deals falling through, investors breathing down my neck. I didn't want to drag you down with me." "You didn't ask what I wanted," Marcus said, his voice sharp. "You decided for both of us." Javier turned to him, his dark eyes raw. "I know, and I've regretted it every day since." Marcus wanted to stay angry, to hold onto the hurt that had kept him safe for 3 years. But Javier's honesty, the way his voice cracked, chipped away at his defenses. He thought of the sketch, of the nights they'd spent dreaming up echoes of US, of the way Javier's hand felt in his. "Why didn't you call sooner?" Marcus asked. 3 years, Javi. That's a long time to carry a sketch. Javier's lips twitched, a ghost of a smile. "I tried to move on, dated a few guys, threw myself into the film. But every time I looked at that sketch, I saw you. I saw us." Marcus's heart pounded. He wanted to believe it, but trust was a fragile thing, and Javier had broken it once. "What do you want now?" he asked. "Another act? Another deal?" "No," Javier said firmly. "I want you. For real. No cameras, no scripts. Just us." The words hung between them, heavy with possibility. Marcus looked out at the park, at the couples laughing, the kids chasing bubbles. He thought of his own life, steady, safe, but lonely. He'd spent 3 years building walls, but Javier's voice, his presence, was a crack in the foundation. "I need time," Marcus said finally. It's a lot." Javier nodded, his expression soft but determined. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere this time." That evening, Marcus met Lena at a cozy Mission District cafe, needing her sharp perspective to ground him. Over steaming mugs of coffee, he spilled everything. Javier's confession, the sketch, the kiss that felt too real. Lena listened, her dark eyes steady. "He sounds sincere," she said, stirring her coffee. "But people don't change overnight. You've got to ask yourself, can you trust him not to run again?" Marcus sighed, running a hand over his face. "I don't know. Part of me wants to believe him, but the other part remembers how it felt when he left." Lena leaned forward. "You're not that kid anymore, Marcus. You've built a life without him. If you let him back in, it's on your terms, not his." Her words stuck with him as he walked home, the city's lights flickering like stars. He thought of the film, of the love story they'd crafted together, and wondered if they could write a new ending, one that wasn't scripted. Days turned into weeks, and Marcus found himself caught in a dance of doubt and hope. Javier was true to his word, showing up in small, quiet ways. A text to check in, a coffee dropped off at Marcus's studio, an invitation to a low-key dinner at a taco truck by the bay. Each gesture felt deliberate, not the grand gestures of a director but the careful steps of someone trying to rebuild trust. One evening, they sat on a pier overlooking the San Francisco Bay, the water shimmering under the moon. Marcus, now more comfortable in Javier's presence, broke the silence. "You're different," he said, glancing at Javier. "Less performative." Javier chuckled, his breath visible in the cool air. "Hollywood does that to you. I spent years playing a part, director, visionary, whatever. But with you, I don't want to pretend anymore." Marcus studied him, searching for the lie. But all he saw was Javier's steady gaze, his hands fidgeting like they did when he was nervous. "What happens when the next big project comes?" Marcus asked. "You gonna disappear again?" Javier's face tightened. "I can't promise I won't mess up, but I can promise I'll stay and fight for this. For us." The words settled over Marcus, warm but heavy. He wanted to believe them, but the past still lingered, a shadow he couldn't shake. "I loved you," Marcus admitted, his voice barely audible. "Back then. And it broke me when you left." Javier's eyes glistened, and he reached for Marcus's hand, hesitating before taking it. "I loved you too," he said. "I was just too scared to say it." The confession hung between them, raw and unguarded. Marcus felt the weight of it, the truth he'd longed for and feared. He squeezed Javier's hand, not ready to forgive but willing to try. As spring bloomed, so did their tentative reconnection. They spent evenings walking through the city, sharing stories of the years apart. Javier talked about the pressure of Echoes of Us, the compromises he'd made to get it made. Marcus shared his own struggles, building his studio, fighting for clients who saw his worth. Each conversation peeled back layers, revealing the men they'd become. One night, at Javier's new apartment in No Valley, they sat on the floor, surrounded by takeout containers and old sketches from their past. Javier pulled out a box of mementos, photos, ticket stubs, a napkin Marcus had doodled on during one of their fake dates. "I kept everything," Javier said, his voice soft. "Every piece of you." Marcus's throat tightened. He picked up a photo of them at a film festival, their smiles wide but their eyes guarded. "We were good at pretending," he said. Javier met his gaze. "Maybe we were. But this," he gestured between them, "this is real." Marcus leaned closer, his heart racing. The air felt charged, like the moment before a storm. When their lips met, it wasn't for show. It was slow, deliberate, a promise neither could fully voice. Marcus pulled back, his breath shaky. "No more games," he said. "No more games," Javier echoed, his hand resting on Marcus's cheek. Summer arrived, painting San Francisco in vibrant hues. Marcus and Javier navigated their new reality, no longer bound by scripts or cameras. But trust, Marcus learned, was a slow build, a house of cards that trembled with every doubt. Javier was patient, showing up consistently, but the industry's pull lingered. A new project loomed, a bigger film, more eyes, more pressure. Marcus saw the old Javier resurface at times, the one who thrived on chaos, and it scared him. One evening, at a gallery opening for Marcus's latest designs, Javier stood by his side, proud but quiet. The crowd buzzed, praising Marcus's work, but his eyes kept drifting to Javier, who seemed distracted. Later, outside under the stars, Marcus confronted him. "You're slipping away again," he said, his voice tight. "I can feel it." Javier's face fell. "It's not like that. This project, it's huge, Marcus. could change everything. "And what about us?" Marcus asked, his heart pounding. "Am I just another thing you'll leave behind?" Javier stepped closer, his voice fierce. "No, you're the one thing I won't let go. I'm fighting for this. For you, every day." Marcus wanted to believe him, but the fear was a living thing, clawing at him. He thought of the film, of the love story they'd told, and realized their own story was messier, more human. "I need you to choose me," Marcus said. "Not the lights, not the fame. Me." Javier took his hands, his grip steady. "I choose you. I always will." Months later, at the premiere of Javier's new film, Marcus stood by his side, not as a prop, but as his partner. The cameras flashed, but their hands stayed clasped, real and unscripted. When the film ended, Javier pulled Marcus close, ignoring the crowd, and kissed him. It wasn't for show. It was a promise, a vow etched in every touch. As they walked into the night, Marcus felt the weight of their journey, the pain, the love, the fight for something real. 3 years of pretending had led to this. A love that didn't need a script, a kiss that wasn't acting.